Hello, welcome to this video talking about the onboarding team, and I'll talk about what the team does and what you would be doing as a member of the team. So our agenda for this video, I'll be going through a little slide deck, then walking through our spreadsheet for tracking the work we do, then going over our orientation slides just briefly because I'll have a separate video giving an example of what an orientation presentation looks like. And then I'll walk through our program app, which is kind of shows you the different places that volunteers can plug into. Because, the goal of the onboarding team is to take people from people who have just signed up with us to helping them understand what the organization is and how they can help them get plugged in. So just a few requirements, which I have listed out here. I'll need to help give you the passwords and the access for all those things. And then I'll have a list of links for all of the things you'll need. And this will be in the description of this video. Great. So let's jump into it. The onboarding team. What does this team do? What is its purpose? So we have about 5 to 10 signups per week. People interested in star voting or equal vote and either wanting to volunteer or at least wanting to know more information. And previously, this was always handled by one person. Originally, Sarah. Then it was Sass for a while. Apologies for the siren. It's downtown LA outside. Previously handled by a single person, Sarah, then Sass, and now me. And I really like to open it up a little more. And with the team, we can handle more signups and contact them faster. Because right now, when it's just me, it can often, I don't have as much time to reach out to people as I like, and sometimes it can take me a while to reach out to them. And it also kind of places a limit on how many people we could have signing up. So let's go over kind of each step of this process. So there's intake, where we initially get volunteers to sign up. I'd say the main reasons people sign up are a lot of people find us on social media or through a YouTube video, kind of doing research on their own. Another group of people are people who we've contacted through canvassing efforts. So they might just know a little bit, but they're interested to learn more. And those are the main people we have signing up through our starvoting.org join page, which let me just go ahead and show you that for a second. So starvoting.org, sign up. When people have signed up here, that's how a lot of them will end up in this flow. But we also have a volunteer. We also get entrance from a website that was formerly called Volunteer Match, now called Idealist, and that has another group of folks who are interested in doing the work and volunteering in general, but don't necessarily know a lot about our mission. So yeah, a lot of variety of people coming in via the intake, and then our job is to look at that list and to kind of make contact with each of them, because a lot of them, even if they're really interested in our mission, a lot of them will not take steps to plug themselves in on their own. They need to have that contact and that connection to kind of like have that initiative to do so. So yeah, we're going to call each of them and see if we can get them into an orientation. And that orientation will be like an hour and a half thing where we get maybe 2 to 3 people in each one, maybe more, maybe less, and give them an overview of a 101 on star voting and equal vote. And then from there, there's an optional volunteer onboarding process. So some people might attend the orientation just to learn a little bit more, but don't necessarily want to volunteer. Others might want to stay for the whole thing and volunteer. And then, for those that do volunteer, the next piece is get them plugged in. And then once they're plugged into a committee or chapter, then at that point, it's the committee or chapter's job to develop them and make sure they have work to do and they're onboarded, and to eventually build them up into leaders. And that's how we grow our organization. So the onboarding team is really focused on these middle steps of taking new signups and getting them all the way to being plugged in with the org. And this is a really critical piece of, I'd say, for our success as an organization. Because if we can get like a really good, if we can get this process really efficient where we can handle a lot of people and we're contacting them quickly, that will start a virtuous cycle. There'll be more volunteers available for the committees and chapters, and that encourages them to work on their processes more, have better onboarding, find more ways to kind of leverage that extra help, extra hands. And it also creates a virtuous cycle on the intake side, because, if it's just one person, then there's like, I kind of know there's a limit to how many people I can process. And that makes me kind of resistant to want to do things that will throw more people into the pipeline, because I might not be able to keep up. But if we know that the onboarding team can keep up, then we can put more energy into canvassing, outreach, more educational resources online that could draw people in. And it could just be like a big, beautiful, virtuous cycle. And it all starts with having a solid onboarding process. Great. So I want to go through next this spreadsheet with my kind of proposed initial process for how we can keep all of it organized. So first off, we're assigning each volunteer a week, and this may change in the future how we do it, but right now we assign each volunteer a week, and then that volunteer's job on the onboarding team, these are volunteers in the onboarding team, that volunteer's job for that week is to make phone calls to all the recent signups and to get them scheduled into a orientation. So the idea is that before the call, you might think of like some ideal, like 2 or 3 ideal slots where you'd like to run the orientation, and then you'll figure out when people are available. And then once you get them committed to an orientation, you can go ahead and put that on the calendar and invite them. And you'll do that with the Equal Vote calendar. And that's where that other additional training will be helpful in the description, which goes over how to create events on the Equal Vote calendar and how to best monitor that. And you'll also need Zoom access so that you can run the orientation. But I'm getting ahead of myself. This spreadsheet is mostly focused on the phone banking portion and really organizing that. So all the contacts will end up in this contact sheet. And I've redacted the personally identifiable information. But yeah, we'll have the name, we'll have their zip code, which figured might be helpful. There's a little video here showing you how to eyeball the zip code to get a sense for where they are. Kind of a general rule of thumb, 1 through 3. If the first number is a 1, 2, or 3, then they're on the East Coast. If the first number is a 9, they're on the West Coast. If the number is not one of those, then they're somewhere in between. So that can give you a sense, at least for their time zone when you're calling them. And you can watch this video for more details on some more fun facts there. So let me just pause this for a second. So yeah, it should be pretty self-explanatory. We have all the personal contact information. We have their join date, which is helpful for us to have a sense for whether we're contacting them within a reasonable amount of time. And then we have the source here as well, which is also helpful. So if these Star Voting sign-up ones are people who came in through the Star Voting sign-up page, and these are people who have an interest in Star Voting. Maybe they just have interest and don't want to volunteer. Others maybe want to volunteer. So that's good to be able to know that they could be either of those when you're in the call. And then there's also volunteer match volunteers. Most of these people are ready to volunteer, but they don't necessarily know a lot about star voting. So that's good to know when you're going into your phone conversation. When we're making contact, physically calling them is going to be the best way to make contact with folks. Next best is going to be texting them. So what I'll usually do is call. If they don't pick up, leave a voicemail and then text them. And if they don't have a phone number listed here, then of course you could do an email as well. And the structure of these conversations, the beginning, middle, and end is going to be beginning. You introduce yourself like, "Hi, I'm Arend. I'm calling from Star Voting. I saw you sign up with us and wanted to follow up." And that's the beginning, something along those lines. And then I'd ask a question. If they came through the Star Voting sign up, maybe I'd ask, "How'd you hear about us?" If they came through Volunteer Match, I might ask, "Are you familiar with Star Voting or what we do?" And then you can have a little bit of a free-form conversation from that. And then the goal of the phone call is to get them scheduled into a formal orientation, and then you'll figure out their schedule, figure out their time slots and availability, and pick a time and get it scheduled in the EcoVote calendar. Let's see. And then one extra thing you'll need to know about Volunteer Match is some of them do require us to track their hours or to validate the hours they worked. And unfortunately, we don't offer that. We don't have a process at the moment for tracking hours. So in each of my Volunteer Match calls, I try to make a point to say, by the way, since a lot of volunteers require tracking hours, we just want to give you a heads up that we unfortunately are not able to accommodate that. We don't have a process for tracking hours at the moment, even though we hope to have one in the future. And a lot of them will require that, and they will be grateful to know that up front. And that also saves us time down the road, so they're not spending much of extra time in orientations and all that. So it's still up in the air whether Volunteer Match is worth it, since quite a few of them do require hour tracking, but that's the process for now. We do get a couple of good volunteers through there who otherwise would not have found it, so it's kind of like a balancing act of whether it's worth it. So when you contact somebody, you can log the time here, and you use this handy dandy shortcut, Control-Alt-Shift, semicolon, and that will just do the current time and date. And then you're going to put your name next to when you contact them. And if you want to, a few days later, if you want to do a follow-up, then you can contact them a second time, and that's a good way to be extra sure that we gave them an opportunity. And it's also good for your stats, because all of these stats play into our leaderboards and tracking later. You can leave status if you want, and then when you book them for the orientation, you can set the date, and then we can keep track of whether or not they joined, RSVP'd, or were a no-show. Another thing we can track. So when you're coming in here for the first time and kind of looking at where to start, we have some fields specifically for the purpose of you to filter. So all the ones that we are still tracking are checked here. So you can start off by filtering that to true. And then the other filter you can do is whether or not they've been contacted yet. So we only want the ones who have not been contacted. And that gives you a nice clean list of who to reach out to. So in addition to all of this, there's some scripts. So basically, a lot of the things that I was talking about earlier, but scripts to help support you and make sure that you have a starting point. And feel free to add to these if there's more text blasts or scripts that you're using frequently. I'm putting an FAQ here for anything I don't cover in the video. And then stats. So this is a lot of fun, where every month or so I can do a checkpoint to see our stats And so we can see for the at September 2nd, with the window between, what is that, July 26th and September 2nd, these were our stats. There were 40 people in the queue, 80% of them contacted, 47% were contacted within 7 days, 37% within 3 days, and then on average we got 5 days per person. So that's the stats that we can hit when it's just me. So excited to see how these adjust as with more people. So we'd kind of month to month, I'll probably be reporting on these, and we can focus on different ones depending on the month. Our first goal is, of course, to contact everybody. Our next goal is contacting them within 7 days, and if we get pretty good at that, then we can try to go further and go to 3 days, and then eventually just go by the delay and try to minimize that as much as possible. So that'll be good for our focus. And the other thing is leaderboards. So as I said earlier, all the names that are listed in these 2 columns get tracked in this leaderboard. And so right now it's just me with 41, but as we have more people, we can track how well we're doing. Whew. So that's all for the spreadsheet. Kind of just rambled through it, but I think I covered everything we wanted to cover. Now let's talk about the onboarding. So when you invite them to an orientation, you're going to go through this slide deck, and I'll have another video kind of giving an example of how I present this slide deck. But we have a couple points in here where we ask them questions. Good way to start here is ask everyone where they're located. Also, what's their why? What gets them excited about start voting or volunteering in general. And then this is the rough agenda. So 101, leave a window for Q&A, and then the onboarding. And I like to emphasize that the onboarding is optional. It's always a little awkward having some people there who really just want to be there for the 101 and then are sitting through the onboarding anyway. So after the Q&A is a nice kind of stopping point for anyone who doesn't want to be there for the onboarding. So yeah, that's the structure. And the meeting could take different forms depending on who's there and how many people. If it's a quieter group, then I'll just kind of like read off the slides and go through my standard presentation, and I'll make it through that way. If it's if people have a lot of questions throughout, and especially if it's just like 1 or 2 people, then I kind of encourage them to ask me questions throughout the presentation and make it like more interactive, and we might kind of deviate from this schedule. And then towards the end of the presentation for the onboarding, right here, I asked them to do the self-onboarding steps. So still figuring out the best balance of how much we should directly guide them through where I'm telling them what to do and how much I should just tell them to self-onboard. So yeah, when they open up the self-onboarding slide deck, this is just designed so that they can each have this open and click through step by step, and this will get them into Slack and show them how to find our events and all that stuff. So it can be, what do I want to say? People aren't perfect about following these self-onboarding steps. Generally, like even if I have a group of 5 people in the room and I tell them each to follow this, like people will kind of naturally kind of pick and choose and skip some steps. But I try to put extra emphasis on getting everybody to at least join the Slack and post in the welcome channel, because that lets us at least have like a document with who they are, and that way we can refer to that if we ever want to looking for you to reach out to in the future. Yeah, so I apologize, a little hand wavy on the orientation, but yeah, you can see the example orientation for more details. And also this process is constantly changing, so it might be very different in a bit. So And one of the goals of the orientation is to get people plugged in to the next steps. So it's good to be aware of what our different programs are. So that's what we have the program map for. So yeah, if you go to equal.vote/program map, this gives you an outline of all the committees and teams we have. Broadly speaking, the committees are the ones who are meeting somewhat regularly, and the teams are the ones who have a channel in Slack, work somewhat asynchronously. Some of them are more active than others. But yeah, once we feed volunteers into these areas, then yeah, it'll just add that much more power and momentum to the movement, and we'll make star voting happen. So if you're talking to the volunteers and they seem to be interested in one or more of these, the next thing is to get them in touch with somebody from that area. And if we scroll down here, you see that each one of these program columns has directors. So those will be the ones you can connect the volunteer to, and the director will kind of take it from there. And I should have mentioned this earlier, but we also plan to have a staff member shadowing each of the orientations, at least in the beginning. So that way you can have a staff member there as backup to answer any questions you're not able to answer, and to help with this process of getting plugged in the program map. So yeah, I think that's it for our orientation process. At some point we'll get this organized into notes, but I think I covered everything. So yeah, let me know if you have any questions, and thank you so much for being involved and helping with the team. Have a good day.